I never thought a broken elevator would be the thing that changed my life. It was the kind of humid late summer evening that only New Yorkers truly understand. When the subways are ovens, the air smells like hot dog water, and everyone's mood sits just a little on edge. I had just finished a double shift at the restaurant where I bartended in Hell's Kitchen, and my shirt was clinging to my back with sweat. My only thought was getting home, stripping down, and maybe spending some quality time with my AC unit. But the universe had other plans. I lived in a mid-rise building in Chelsea, one of those slightly older but still respectable places where the rent made you question your life choices every month. The kind of building where the elevator was technically newly installed but still groaned like a grandpa every time it moved. I should have taken the stairs. I really should have taken the stairs. I pressed the button. The elevator arrived. Empty. Well, almost. Inside stood him, a guy I'd seen maybe a dozen times in passing, but never spoken to. The hot neighbor from 5B. He looked like he walked straight out of a Brooklyn bouldering gym ad. Lean muscle, messy hair, and a jawline that could cut glass. He always wore these fitted tees that did criminal things to his torso, and shorts that seemed one size too snug. I'd seen him in the laundry room once, and it took everything in me not to trip over my words. He glanced up from his phone and gave a quick nod. Hey, that was the first word he'd ever said to me. I nodded back, stepping inside. Evening. The doors slid shut. We started ascending, floor 2, 3, then a lurch, a loud metallic clunk, and the elevator jolted to a stop. The lights flickered once, then went dim. You gotta be kidding me, I muttered. The guy in 5B sighed and pressed the emergency button. Nothing. He tried his phone. No signal, he said, tapping at the screen. Perfect. Same here, I said, holding up my own phone. I guess we're doing this the old-fashioned way. He turned to me with a half smile. And by that you mean, scream until someone hears us? I chuckled, trying to hide the way my stomach flipped. That, or we just wait it out and slowly lose our minds. There was a pause. Then he leaned against the wall and slid down to the floor. Guess we're roommates now, he said, patting the space beside him. I hesitated, then sat. I'm Eli, by the way, I offered. Connor, he replied, offering his hand. I shook it, and maybe it was the heat or the way our fingers lingered, but it felt like something clicked. We talked. Small stuff at first. Work, weather, complaining about the building. But somewhere around the 20-minute mark, the conversation shifted. Deeper, jokes turned personal. His eyes held mine a little longer than necessary. His knee brushed against mine and didn't move away. Then came the question. So, Eli, he said, voice softer, you live with someone? Nope. Just me and my cat. He nodded slowly, and his gaze dropped briefly to my lips. Cool. I just moved here a few months ago. Still figuring things out. What do you do? Architecture, he said with a little shrug. Design stuff, mostly. Freelance. Then, looking up at me again. You ever get that feeling that New York is like trying to chew you up? I laughed. Every day. He smiled back. But you stay. Yeah, I said. Because sometimes you find things worth staying for. I didn't know why I said it. I didn't plan it. But when I did, Connor's expression shifted, just slightly, but enough to tell me he heard what I meant. Silence stretched out between us, not awkward, but charged. His hand was resting close to mine, and without fully thinking, I let my pinky graze his, just a touch. He didn't pull away. Then the lights flicked back on. We both blinked as the elevator jerked and began moving again. Connor looked at me, expression unreadable, and just before the doors opened on the 5th floor, he leaned in, his voice low. Wanna come see my place? I should have said no. I should have mumbled something about being tired or needing a shower, but when Connor asked if I wanted to see his place, the words that came out of my mouth were, yeah, sure. We stepped into the hallway, the air noticeably cooler than the elevator, but I was burning up for an entirely different reason now. His apartment was just like I'd imagined. Minimal, stylish, and a little messy in a way that said he was too busy living to worry about dusting. There was a sketch pad open on the kitchen counter, covered in quick, angular designs. A couple empty coffee mugs. A stray sock under the couch. "Sorry, it's a mess," Connor said, tossing his keys onto the counter. I shook my head. "Looks lived in. That's a good thing." He smirked and gestured toward the couch. "Make yourself at home." I sank into the soft cushions, watching as he grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, then handed it to me. Our fingers brushed again, longer this time. "You good?" he asked, and I caught the subtle shift in his tone. Not casual, not friendly, careful. Testing. "I'm good," I said. My voice sounded low, almost unfamiliar to me. He sat across from me on the other end of the couch, knees turned slightly toward mine. The space between us felt dangerous. There was a moment, that kind of moment where you know the next thing you do is going to mean something. That invisible line people talk about, we were towing it. I wasn't sure who moved first. Maybe it was both of us, but suddenly we were closer. His hand found the top of the couch behind me. Mine rested on my thigh, too still. The air buzzed. "I've seen you around," he said, his eyes fixed on me now. "Always thought you were kinda cute." I blinked. "You've never said anything." He leaned in slightly. "You've never looked at me like this before." I didn't respond. I couldn't, because I had looked at him like this before, just never when he was looking back. "I'm not great at this kind of thing," Connor admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "But if I'm reading this wrong..." "You're not," I said quickly. Too quickly. He smiled, a slow, deliberate curl of his lips. "Good." The first kiss was soft, almost hesitant. His hand cupped the back of my neck, and I leaned into it, the taste of his mouth lingering with just a hint of mint and beer. My hands moved on instinct, up his arms, over his shoulders, and when I pushed into him just a little, he groaned against my lips. That's when it shifted. He pushed me back onto the couch, crawling over me in one smooth motion. His knee nudged between my legs, and I felt the pressure, the heat of him right there. His kisses deepened, more urgent now, as his fingers slid under the hem of my shirt, skating across my skin. "Jesus," he muttered against my throat. "You feel..." I tilted my head back, giving him more room, my breathing shaky. "Don't stop." He didn't. His mouth traced a line down my neck, his hands exploring, learning me like one of his blueprints. Precise, curious, greedy. My shirt came off, and his followed fast, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Skin on skin now, and I could feel the tremble in his body echoing in mine. "I've wanted this since the first time I saw you," he said, voice thick, words barely a whisper. "Didn't know how to..." I pulled him closer. "You're doing just fine." We didn't make it to the bedroom. Not that night. The couch became our whole world. Sweat-slicked skin, deep moans, hands everywhere. It was intense, clumsy, a little frantic, but real. So real. No masks, no posturing, just two guys who couldn't hold back anymore. After we lay tangled together, the only sound our uneven breaths and the quiet buzz of the fridge in the kitchen. His fingers traced lazy circles on my chest. "So now what?" I looked over at him, heart still racing. "Now we either pretend this never happened, or we see where it goes." He turned his head, met my eyes, and smiled like the choice had already been made. "I think I'd like to see where it goes." The next morning hit like a fog, slow and thick and full of too many thoughts. I woke up before Connor, still half naked, twisted up in the throw blanket he'd yanked over us sometime around 3 a.m. His head rested on my chest, arm draped across my stomach. The curtains were cracked just enough to let in the soft, gray light of early New York morning. For a second, I didn't move. Didn't want to. His breath was warm, steady. There was a smudge of sleep across his cheek, and his hair stuck out at odd angles. Somehow he looked even better like that. Unguarded, soft. My phone buzzed somewhere across the room, but I ignored it. This was more important. Then his eyes fluttered open, blue and unfocused for a beat. He blinked up at me, and a slow smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Hey, hey," I said back, voice rough with sleep. He shifted slightly, propping himself up on one elbow. His fingers brushed against my ribs. "So, last night wasn't just the heat, right?" I tilted my head. "You mean the heat from the elevator, or the heat from your hands?" He grinned, a low chuckle escaping him. "Touché." There was a pause. Not awkward, just full. And he finally said, "I don't usually do this." "Sleep with neighbors?" "Sleep with guys," he admitted, eyes searching mine. I nodded slowly, keeping my face calm. "Okay." "You okay with that?" "Yeah," I said. "As long as you're not gonna freak out on me." "I'm not," he said quickly. "I mean, I don't think I am. I've been thinking about it for a while. About you." That made my chest tighten in the best way. I sat up a little, reached for his hand. "Then, let's just see what happens. No pressure." Connor stared at our fingers for a second, before lacing his through mine. "Deal." Over the next couple of weeks, something shifted. But not in a bad way. We started hanging out more, at first in our apartments, then out in the city. He'd text me after work. "You hungry? Feel like ramen? Or wanna come up?" I got wine and no one to drink it with. Sometimes I'd go to his place after a long shift, and we wouldn't even touch. Just talk, lay on the couch, his feet in my lap while we watched trash reality shows and made fun of everyone. Other nights though, yeah, we touched. A lot. And those nights were like lightning. One Friday night, I got home late from bartending. It was almost 1 a.m. and I was dead on my feet, but when I stepped into the building, Connor was leaning against his doorframe, shirtless, sleepy-eyed, holding 2 beers. "I was hoping you'd be up," he said, voice low. I walked over, took one of the bottles. "You waiting for me?" He nodded. "Yeah, wanted to see you." That night was slower, deeper. We didn't rush. It wasn't just heat. It was something else now. Something that lingered in the way he whispered my name into my neck, the way his body curled around mine after. The next morning I stayed longer than usual. Made us coffee. Watched him brush his teeth, sleepy and half naked in the bathroom mirror. We were starting to move like we belonged together. Then came the rooftop night. Our building had a small, unofficial rooftop spot. Mostly forgotten lawn chairs, a couple dead plants, but the view of Manhattan was killer. Connor brought a speaker and a bottle of whiskey. I brought a blanket and the guts to ask him something that had been bothering me. We were lying on our backs, staring at the stars. "Are you gonna tell anyone?" I asked. Connor didn't answer right away. "I mean," I said quickly, "not that you have to. I'm not asking you to make some big announcement. It's just, are we keeping this quiet forever?" He exhaled, long and slow. "It's not about shame. I've never had something like this before. I don't know how to explain it to anyone yet." I nodded, trying to hide the flicker of disappointment. "But," he added, turning toward me, "I'm not hiding you. That's different." "You sure?" He nodded. "You're not some secret I'm trying to bury. I'm just figuring out how to do this right." That mattered. And the kiss that followed, under a sky full of stars and the distant buzz of the city, tasted like a promise. The days that followed were a little too good. Connor started texting me in the mornings, stuff like "hope your shift doesn't suck" or "leftovers in my fridge if you're hungry later." It was subtle, but it meant something. He even came to the bar once, sat at the far end, and waited until I finished work just so we could walk home together. It wasn't flashy or dramatic. It was something better. Real. We weren't defining anything yet, and I didn't push. But the way his hand would find mine under the table at dinner, or the way he'd quietly reach for me in his sleep, those things said more than words could. Still, the city has a way of sneaking up on you, reminding you that comfort is temporary. The first crack happened on a Tuesday. I had a day off, rare as hell, and I spent it deep cleaning my apartment and catching up on laundry. Around 6 p.m., I texted Connor. Me. "Wanna come over?" Made pasta. Actually used real garlic this time, not the powder. No reply. An hour passed. then 2. Nothing. By 10, I was pacing my living room, trying not to spiral. I told myself he was busy. Maybe he fell asleep. Maybe he forgot to charge his phone. But I couldn't shake the feeling. It wasn't just the silence, it was the shift. Like something had rewired while I wasn't looking. The next day, I ran into him in the lobby. He looked weird. Not bad, just off. "Hey," I said, trying to play it cool. "Hey," he replied, distracted. "You okay?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah. Sorry about last night. Got caught up with some stuff. Friend from out of town showed up." I nodded slowly. All good. But it didn't feel all good. It felt like something was hiding underneath that explanation. Still, I didn't press. I didn't want to be that guy. That weekend, we barely talked. And when we did, he was different. Shorter replies. Less eye contact. Like he was there, but not with me. Then came the party. My friend Jessie was throwing a rooftop get-together in Bushwick. She'd begged me to come for weeks, and I figured Connor might actually like it. Low-key, good food, some artsy vibes. He agreed to come, but he showed up late, already a little buzzed. And not alone. He brought a guy. Tall, lean, stylish, in that Brooklyn trying too hard way. His name was Nathan, and he looked very comfortable standing close to Connor. I played it cool. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to cause a scene. But when I went to grab drinks and came back to find Nathan laughing with his hand on Connor's chest, my stomach flipped. Later, I cornered Connor near the stairwell. "You good?" I asked. He sighed. "Yeah, just don't make it weird." "Should I be making it weird?" He paused, then looked me dead in the eye. "I'm figuring things out. You knew that." Oof, that one hurt. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I did." "I'm not trying to hurt you," he said, quieter now. "Then maybe stop making me feel like I'm optional." He didn't have an answer for that. I left the party early. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't check to see if he noticed. The walk back to the train felt longer than usual. The city was buzzing, cars honking, people laughing outside bars. But all I could hear was that line on repeat in my head. "I'm figuring things out." It was fair. Honest even. But it didn't make it sting any less. A few days passed. No texts, no surprise visits. The silence was back, and this time it felt personal. I kept telling myself I wouldn't reach out first. That if he wanted this, us, he'd have to show me. But one night, close to midnight, I heard a knock on my door. It was Connor. He looked tired, soaked from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead. "I didn't know where else to go," he said, voice shaking just a little. I let him in. He stood there in my living room, dripping and silent, until finally he said, "I messed up." I swallowed. "Yeah, you kinda did." He looked at me, something raw and uncertain in his eyes. "Can we talk?" I nodded once. "Start from the beginning." And just like that, the line between us, blurred, tangled, cracked, started to shift again. But this time, it was on his terms. And maybe, just maybe, we could build something stronger out of the wreckage. Connor didn't sit. He just stood there in my apartment, dripping onto the hardwood, his arms crossed tightly like they were the only thing holding him together. I stayed on the couch, legs stretched out, hands clenched. I could feel the crackle in the air between us, like a wire pulled taut, ready to snap or spark. "Start from the beginning," I said again, this time softer. He ran a hand through his wet hair. "Nathan's not what you think." I didn't reply, just waited. He's an old friend. Ex, actually. From before. When I was still trying to figure shit out. He was in town, wanted to meet. I didn't plan for it to be a thing. I didn't think it would mess with my head the way it did. "So it did mess with your head," I said. "Yeah," Connor admitted, meeting my eyes. "It did." He finally sat down. Not next to me, on the edge of the coffee table, facing me, close enough that I could feel the heat coming off him. Rain still clung to his skin, a few drops slipping down the side of his neck. It took everything in me not to reach out. "I saw you at that party," he said. "Saw your face, and it just hit me." "What?" "That I was being a coward," he said. "That I had something real with you, and I was too scared to let it matter." I looked at him for a long time, unsure of what to say. I wanted to be mad, wanted to tell him it wasn't that easy. But when someone finally shows up and owns their mess, it does something to you. "I've been in the middle of something for a long time," Connor said. "This space between who I was and who I want to be. And you, Eli, you make it feel safe. But that scares the shit out of me." "You think it doesn't scare me?" I asked, leaning forward now. "You think I've got all this figured out?" He looked at me like I just said something he didn't expect. "I've been carrying this thing," I went on, "this feeling for you, for weeks now. Trying not to name it, because if I do, it's real, and if it's real, it can get hurt." His face softened. "What is it?" "What?" "The thing," he whispered. "The name," I exhaled, leaning back into the couch. "Don't make me say it." "Say it," he said, moving closer. "Please." I stared at him, heart thudding. "It's love, Connor." His breath caught. "I think I'm falling for you too." And just like that, it wasn't tension anymore. It was heat. He reached for me, hands trembling slightly as they found my face. Our lips met in a way that felt different this time. Less hungry, more desperate, a kind of needing that came from somewhere deeper. We kissed like we were making up for lost time. His clothes were still damp, but he didn't care. Neither did I. We moved together, stripping off layers in the low light, not rushed, but deliberate. Every touch felt like a promise. When I pulled him onto the bed, his eyes never left mine. He hovered above me for a second, breath shaky, hands on either side of my face. "This means something," he whispered. I nodded. "Yeah, it does." What followed wasn't just sex. It wasn't just release. It was connection. Sweat-slicked skin, deep sighs, whispered names. His mouth on my collarbone, my hands tangled in his hair. It was soft and rough and honest all at once. The kind of night where you lose track of time because nothing else matters except the way he moaned against your neck or gasped when you pulled him closer. And afterward, when he curled into me, our bodies still humming, he said something I'll never forget. "I don't want to be scared anymore." "You don't have to be," I whispered. "Not with me." He stayed the whole night. And this time, he didn't leave in the morning. Connor stayed. Not just that night, but the morning after, and the next one too. It started small. Him leaving a hoodie on the back of my chair, a toothbrush in my bathroom. One day, he brought over a bag of groceries and cooked me breakfast like it was no big deal. But it was. It was a big deal. And somehow, without ever sitting down to talk about it, we just became us. It was messy in places. He'd still have quiet days, moments where I could tell his head was spinning faster than he could manage. I'd catch him staring out the window too long, or hesitating before reaching for my hand in public. And yeah, that used to sting. But we talked. We kept talking. We got better at it. One night we were lying in bed, half naked and half laughing about some awful Netflix movie we'd watched, when he turned to me, serious all of a sudden. "Do you think we're rushing this?" he asked. I shrugged, tracing lazy patterns on his chest. "I think we're doing it our way," he nodded. "Yeah, I like our way." We started building routines. Coffee runs on Sunday mornings. Walking to the corner bodega after midnight when neither of us could sleep. Leaving sticky notes on the fridge with dumb jokes or song lyrics or "just missed you today." He started opening up to his friends. Introduced me as someone important. Eventually, he told his sister. Then, one afternoon, we were walking through Central Park, and he reached for my hand without thinking. Just laced his fingers through mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. It was the first time he did it in broad daylight, around strangers. He didn't even realize what he'd done until I stopped walking. When he looked at me, confused, I said, "You just held my hand." He blinked. "Yeah?" "In public." A beat passed. He looked down, then up again. So? I laughed, pulling him closer. I'm proud of you. He leaned in and kissed my cheek, then whispered, Took me long enough. The months rolled on. The city didn't stop being chaos. My job still sucked on most days. His projects kept him up too late. Sometimes we argued over dumb things like laundry or whose turn it was to take out the trash. Sometimes we didn't feel like having sex, or we said the wrong thing at the wrong time. But every night, without fail, we came back to each other. I remember one rainy evening, months later, standing at the same elevator where it all started. It stalled again, not fully stuck, just delayed. Long enough for both of us to look at each other and laugh. Deja vu? I said. Connor smiled, sliding his hand into mine. Let's just agree to always take the stairs from now on. I shook my head. No way, this thing gave me you. He leaned in, kissed me slow and deliberate, right there in the elevator with its flickering light and groaning cables. And that's the moment it really hit me. We weren't just a fling or a phase, we were something that lasted.